The most dangerous thing in this room is not something anyone can prove is supernatural. It is the fact that a human body is running out of time. Klingenberg, Bavaria, 1975. This is West Germany, not the Middle Ages. Hospitals, neurologists, psychiatric care, telephones, cars, and emergency medicine all exist within reach. Anneliese Michel is 23 years old. Years earlier, she had begun experiencing severe convulsive episodes and later received treatment for epilepsy and serious psychiatric symptoms. The treatment did not bring the recovery she and her family hoped for. Her distress continued, and the meaning of those symptoms gradually changed inside the household. Instead of being understood only as illness, some of her experiences came to be interpreted by Anneliese, relatives, and clergy through the language of demonic possession. That shift matters because survival is never only about what is happening inside the body. It is also about who gets to decide what the body needs next. In 1975, priests sought permission from Bishop Joseph Stangl of Würzburg to perform the formal Catholic rite of exorcism. Permission was eventually granted under secrecy. The first formal session took place in late September. From that point, repeated rituals became a central part of the response to Anneliese's condition. Contemporary reporting later stated that all medical treatment had stopped roughly 11 months before her death. The house now held two competing explanations, but only one was guiding action. Imagine the survival choice from inside that room. Continue a ritual everyone around you believes is necessary, or insist that worsening physical symptoms require a doctor immediately. The difficulty is that serious deterioration rarely arrives with a single unmistakable alarm. It accumulates through fatigue, missed meals, reduced drinking, weakness, confusion, and loss of independence. An untouched glass of water can look insignificant. In survival terms, it is not. Every day, without enough fluid narrows the body's margin for error. Dehydration reduces circulating fluid volume. As it becomes severe, blood pressure can fall, dizziness and confusion can appear, and the kidneys and other organs face increasing risk. Now at inadequate food, the body begins consuming stored energy, then progressively sacrifices fat and muscle. Strength disappears long before the body reaches its absolute limit. A person who is already dealing with seizures, psychiatric distress, poor sleep, and intense emotional pressure has less reserve available for that decline. The danger in this case was therefore cumulative. No single ritual had to be fatal for the overall process to become life-threatening. Records and later accounts converge on a total of 67 formal exorcism sessions across roughly 10 months. Reports differ on the precise length of individual sessions. What remains clear is the pattern. The rites continued while Anneliese's physical condition worsened and medical supervision did not resume. At each stage, the survival question becomes more urgent. Is this exhaustion part of the spiritual struggle everyone expects, or a medical warning that cannot safely be reinterpreted? The moment you answer that question incorrectly, the environment itself becomes a trap. A normal bedroom can become dangerous when every signal is filtered through the same belief. There is no locked steel door here. The barrier is decisional. Family loyalty, religious authority, Anneliese's own convictions, and the absence of a competing medical voice in the room. That makes the case unusually modern. The resources for rescue existed, but access depended on recognizing that the body had crossed from suffering into emergency. Food left on a plate is another piece of evidence. Near the end of her life, accounts describe Anneliese refusing food and drink as her condition became increasingly severe. Prolonged undernutrition strips away muscle. Standing becomes harder. Walking becomes harder. Recovery from stress becomes harder. Even ordinary infections can become more dangerous. The body begins to prioritize immediate survival over everything else. Movement slows, temperature regulation becomes more difficult, and reserves that once absorbed stress are no longer there. This is why starvation and dehydration are not dramatic single events. They are systems failures that gradually remove the body's ability to compensate. A survival diagram of this case has 3 lines descending together: available energy, available fluid, and available medical oversight. When all 3 fall, risk rises sharply. If you were Anneliese, the rational escape route would seem simple from the outside. Call a doctor, seek hospital care, restore fluids, assess nutrition, and reevaluate the neurological and psychiatric condition. From inside the household, however, that route was no longer simple. The same symptoms that should have triggered medical concern were being interpreted as evidence that the ritual had to continue. That creates a feedback loop. Worsening behavior can strengthen belief in possession. Stronger belief can justify more ritual. More delay can allow the physical condition to worsen further. The most frightening evidence is therefore ordinary: a telephone that is not used, medication no longer guiding care, meals that are not eaten, water that is not replaced inside the body. By winter and spring, time itself becomes the hidden threat. Every day without reversal reduces strength and makes the next decision harder to make. A weakened person also becomes more dependent on the people around them. Independence shrinks at exactly the moment when independent judgment may matter most. This is where survival stops being an individual contest. If you cannot reliably stand, travel, eat, drink, or organize help, your survival depends on someone else recognizing the emergency. The body does not care why help is delayed. It responds only to fluid balance, energy, oxygen, temperature, infection, injury, and the limits of its remaining reserve. Severe dehydration can eventually reduce blood flow enough to threaten the brain, kidneys, and other organs. Confusion itself can then make self-rescue even less likely. Now place that physiology inside a highly charged ritual environment, where distress, unusual behavior, and physical weakness may all be given a spiritual explanation. The key survival decision is not whether to respect belief. It is whether belief is allowed to replace medical assessment when measurable physical deterioration is present. That distinction could have changed the outcome. A ritual and medical care are not physically equivalent interventions. One does not replace fluids, calories, monitoring, or emergency treatment. In the final phase, Anneliese was extremely weak. Contemporary reports said she weighed about 68 pounds, roughly 30 kilograms, when she died. At that level of wasting, the visual signs of danger no longer require specialized knowledge. Profound weight loss, loss of strength, reduced mobility, and inability to maintain normal intake. Yet the rituals continued. The extraordinary part of the story is not that warning signs were invisible. It is that they were absorbed into a different explanation. A survival case file would mark this as the point where the remaining options are narrowing. Home care, ritual, physician, ambulance, hospital. Only some of those routes can correct dehydration. The closer the body gets to collapse, the less time exists for debate. Medical emergencies punish delay because treatment must begin before irreversible organ damage develops. According to the prosecution at the later trial, Anneliese's death could have been prevented even about 1 week before she died if medical help had been called. That claim turns the final days into a real survival countdown. Not a supernatural clock, but a physiological one. How much reserve remained, and when was the last reversible moment? A telephone call now becomes the most important object in the house. One decision could have brought an outside assessment into a system that had become closed around a single interpretation. But no effective medical rescue came. On July 1st, 1976, Anneliese Michel died at home at the age of 23. The autopsy attributed her death to malnutrition and dehydration. Those are physical causes, measurable in the body, regardless of what anyone believed about the origin of her other symptoms. The case immediately shifted from the bedroom to the legal system. Investigators had to ask not what the family believed, but what reasonable care required as her condition deteriorated. In March 1978, the trial opened in Aschaffenburg. Anneliese's parents and the two priests involved faced charges of negligent homicide. Doctors testified about epilepsy, psychiatric disturbance, and the consequences of failing to obtain medical care. The courtroom also heard recordings from the exorcism sessions. The defense argued that religious practice was protected and that those involved believed they were helping. The prosecution focused on a simpler duty: call a physician when the body is failing. The court convicted all 4 defendants of negligent homicide and imposed 6-month suspended prison sentences. The verdict did not have to solve the supernatural question. It only had to confront the human one. When a vulnerable person can no longer protect herself, what responsibility do the people around her carry? For survival, this is the lesson that matters. The most dangerous environment is not always a burning building, a sinking ship, or a frozen mountain. Sometimes the environment is a closed decision system in which every new warning sign is interpreted as proof that the existing response must continue. The escape route is external verification. Another clinician, objective measurements, hydration, nutrition, observation, and the willingness to change course when the body is visibly deteriorating. That is not an argument against faith. It is a recognition that belief cannot measure blood pressure, restore circulating volume, replace lost calories, or reverse organ failure. If the case were happening around you, the survival rule would be brutally simple. Unexplained weight loss, persistent refusal of food or water, severe weakness, confusion, or repeated seizures demand medical assessment. The longer those signs continue, the less safe it becomes to wait for certainty about their cause. Survival often requires acting before everyone agrees on the explanation. Anneliese's story remains disturbing because the danger grew in a familiar house, among people convinced they were responding to what they saw. No one needed to intend harm for the situation to become deadly. Neglect can emerge from certainty, delay, dependence, and the disappearance of competing advice. The final image is not the ritual. It is the empty room afterward, a bed, a glass, a telephone, and the knowledge that medical help had existed outside the door. Could you survive the same sequence? Only if someone recognized that the question had stopped being spiritual and become immediately physical. Because in this case, survival did not depend on defeating a demon. It depended on noticing the body was dying while there was still time to save it. And that may be the hardest survival skill of all. Knowing when the story everyone believes is no longer enough to explain what the body needs. The case closed in court, but the survival question remains open wherever belief, authority, illness, and delayed care collide. When the body is failing, the safest decision is the one that brings measurable reality back into the room. Survival sometimes begins with a single act, calling for help before the last reversible moment disappears.